Welcome to the Daily Gerry Anderson podcast, which begins with Coilus interrupts us feeling the need to make a public apology. The presenter is initially puzzled.
Can I get something off my chest?
As long as it's of a non-surgical nature, yes.
Can I?
Yes, go ahead. Of course you can.
Something I've been living with for a long time.
Your wife? What? 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 I wish she'd leave you alone. Yeah, okay. Tell her you want to go to work on your own. Eh? Tell her that. Tell her, I want to go to work on my own, say.
No, there's a man that I wish to apologise to.
Do you?
Even though he won't hear this.
But it may be passed on to him. Is this man alive?
Yes.
Is he living in the province?
No.
Is he living in the greater mainland?
No.
Is he an American?
Yes.
Is he?
Yeah.
And why would he be concerned that you're... Well, why would he...
No, he doesn't know anything
He
about
doesn't know anything about this.
No. It's just something that I've been living with and just...
Go ahead.
How stupid you were. You know,
I was?
No, that's me saying.
How stupid you were.
No,
Talk to yourself.
You know Pike? Stupid boy.
Stupid boy.
You know
Stupid boy.
Stupid.
Don't tell him, Pike.
Aye.
Okay. Go ahead. Issue your apology.
When I went to see Muhammad Ali, it was Cassius Clay then.
That's
I went
right.
to see Cassius Clay fighting Henry Cooper for the world heavyweight title.
Henry Cooper?
I wanted Henry Cooper to win.
Oh, dear.
I was a big Henry Cooper man, but I didn't realise how brilliant Muhammad Ali was.
Did you watch that thing last night with David Frost? Did you? But Muhammad Ali?
David Frost?
Yeah.
No, what was that?
BBC Four.
Oh, you don't believe me.
A documentary, but he made it 10 years ago, and it was the best thing ever. David Frost first met Cassius Clay in 1968.
What time was that, Dennis?
It was on about 10 o'clock. Ah! It's all right, calm down. It was brilliant.
Because I was watching a programme and I kept wanting to hit the two men who were presenting it.
Who were they?
Emma's telling me I can watch it again. Can I watch it again?
Of course you
on
can.
iPlayer? Oh,
Don't miss it. Don't miss it.
No, I'll watch it tonight then.
It was obviously broadcast 10 years ago on the occasion of Ali's 60th birthday. And David Frost sat and talked to Ali 10 years ago. And he was pretty bad then, but he's obviously worse now, Parkinson's.
Yeah.
But he was okay.
Yeah.
David Frost had to kind of, shout at him, basically, and had to wait a long time.
Yeah.
And there's one particular time he fell asleep. No, but he did it deliberately for the fun of it.
Right.
But David Frost thought
making fun of himself?
No, he thought he'd actually fallen asleep because he really genuinely thought he'd fallen asleep during the middle of an interview. But then he kept going back and forwards to various interviews that David Frost did with him in the past. He did the first one he did in 1968 when Cassius Clay told David Frost that all white men were devils. And, of course, David Frost, being a white man, was defending the white race. Well, some of them saying that they weren't all devils, some of them weren't, that kind of thing. But the best one ever was in 1974, before the Rumble in the Jumble.
Yeah.
Jumble.
Yeah,
the Rumble in the Rumble in the Jumble. Let me just get that right. The Rumble in the Jungle with George Foreman. And that was when he won his title back for the second time. Just before that, David Frost went down to his place in Deer Creek. And I'm not quite sure where that was, to his training quarters, and in front of a whole audience, he interviewed him in the ring, sitting down in the ring, and it's the best interview I've ever seen with anybody. I want you to watch that.
I shall.
It's David Frost. David Frost is full of fun, and I like David Frost because he's full of fun. He's a bit pompous at times, but he actually got a good sense of humour. Right. And Cassius Clay liked him, and the two of them are working out on each other. It's just fantastic. The presenter increasingly looks back to his young days and now regrets having little or no curiosity about the lives his parents led when they were young. Now that he is old and decrepit himself, he values and takes comfort in the fact that his children, unlike his own young self, are interested in him. Death will follow soon. And there are old photographs of young children standing there, and trick-of-the-loop men, and con men, and men selling food, and wonderful photographs. You can see them everywhere. And you can see all these little waifs standing with their bundles, waiting for the farmers with the bowler hats and the waistcoats and the chains on their watch chains to come over. And that's what they did. She would tell me, she would stand there and clutching her bundle, and a man would come over, and look at her teeth, like a horse.
Yeah.
Look at her teeth and kind of, ask her to put out her arms, see if she had any muscles, and ask her to cough and look down her throat and stuff like that to make sure she had no diseases like diphtheria or anything like that. And then he would say, right, come on with me, Curry. And then she would go with him, and then he'd bring her over to a cart, right? And he'd say, jump up in that cart and sit there. and she would jump up in the cart and he would take her bundle. Her bundle would be everything that she has in the world to keep her going for the next 4 months, and then he would go to a pub. And then he'd throw the bundle behind the bar and stand and get full. And maybe he'd have 3 or 4 bundles, and maybe there'd be other wee people standing beside the cart as well, not knowing each other, not knowing him, not knowing where they were going. And then the man would come back, flushed with alcohol, and tell him to jump up, and then he'd get on the cart and take them away somewhere, and they had no idea where they were going, and they'd stay there for 3 and 4 months, 4 months usually, and sometimes, depending on who they worked for, they'd be working like from 6 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night, and they weren't allowed to sit down even to have their meals. Weren't allowed to sit down at all, so they were on their feet all the time, because if you sat down it was a sign of laziness. Now, she told me all that, and one of the things she did tell me, which was a great thing for me to know at the time, there was a great misconception that all the people who owned land were all Protestants, and that all these Protestant people were very bad to you. And she said no. She said the worst people she ever worked for were Catholics. They treated her like dirt. All the Protestant people she worked for were very nice to her. And she said there's no truth in that whatsoever. And she said that's how I learned that there was no difference between people. They're all the same. They're all horrible. Most of them are anyway. The people you think are rotten are not rotten, and the people you think aren't going to be rotten will be rotten. And I've learned this life, because when I met you, I realised I thought you were okay, and then I realised how horrible you were as I got to know you. But the thing that I really regret is not sitting down to her and asking her about the detail, about asking about what things smelled like, and what she ate, and stuff like that. You'd listen to the broad strokes and you'd say, oh, all right, no, that's great. But you were young then, you didn't know, you say. You wanted to go out, and you're saying, that's great. My father would go, I remember the time my father ran away and joined the army in the Free State when he was 17. And he's sitting there telling me about boys shooting at him and everything. I'm going, yeah, right, listen, I have to go. But that's the way you are, aren't you?
Yeah.
Isn't that the way you are? And then God love them, they die, and it's too late to talk to them. The programme Fulfilling its remit to look under previously unbothered stones examines visits to Belfast made by various American heavyweight champion boxers, all of whom are now dead and buried.
I actually can say I met him, I was there, but he was interviewed, so there should be news footage of it somewhere.
It's probably Charles Witherspoon.
Who would that have been?
Sullivan Boomer.
Would have been Walter.
Maybe it wouldn't have been Walter. No, it might have been Michael Begley. Oh. Michael Begley, tell me, sonny, Mr. Liston, what was the hardest fight you ever fought? And tell me this: are you very fond of your left hook, or is the right hammer the thing that does it for you? And tell me this, and tell me no more. What is your training regime? And tell me this, and tell me no more. You intend to fight that young scamp Ali, and what do you think it'll happen between them? Do you think he'll knock you out? No, I think he'll knock you out in the one punch. I think. And tell me this, and tell me no more. What are you doing here in the province? Have you met anyone?
I wonder how long he was here for. Do you know that, Joe? Was he here for a couple of days?
I think he was over here for a day, and then he had to go over to London.
Oh, right.
All right.
Okay.
But they did hold a press conference upstairs in Bannon's furniture shop.
What are you doing here in the province, sonny? That's the
He came to
policeman.
meet me.
That's the policeman. That's the policeman used to say to me. What do you think you're doing, sonny? The presenter now imparts one of his frequently heard life lessons, things that he has learnt over the course of a wasted, drunken and often immoral life. Some of these tales even have a faint ring of truth. What is the last thing you say to Sonny Liston if he's standing beside you in the bar?
I wouldn't know, God.
You spilt my pint there.
Oh,
Or what about this one? What do you think you're looking at?
who are you looking at?
Things not to say. What's the worst thing you could say? What's the worst thing you could say?
But the thing about boxers...
You're not a big Jesse.
Boxers in general, professional boxers of that ilk, they wouldn't...
Absolutely
no, they
not.
don't bother about you.
No, well, actually,
bother
good friend of ours is, of course, fought for the world title. And I remember talking to him. You know who it is.
Yeah.
And I talked to him, and he said, I would never, ever consider hitting anybody.
No, they wouldn't.
No, because he said because for two reasons. One, you'd probably kill him.
Yeah.
And secondly, it's regarded as a deadly weapon. Yeah. If you're a professional boxer and you hit a guy, it's as if you've taken a gun out. And the law would take a very serious look at it.
Yeah, but even afterwards, they know they can weigh up a situation. They know they wipe the floor with you, and they just dismiss you.
I'm like that, Yeah. People come up to me and they know that I'm just like a coiled spring. Yeah. And they know that if they annoy me, that I will not turn on them. But they know that if I did turn on them, I would kill them.
Richard's untrue.
That's what a fella said to me one time. And I used to play in this terrible, terrible, horrible, very rough club in New York. I used to play there regularly, every once in a while, and just stay there for a week, you see. And it was a very, very rough clientele. And there was a bouncer there, and I you kind of hanging about sometimes. You'd want to drink, sometimes you're playing, then you're not playing. Sometimes you want to get away. Sometimes you go down and stand at the door for a smoke or whatever it was. Or just get out, get a bit of air, really, basically, because you could smoke anywhere. And you'd end up talking to the bouncer at the door, And I remember talking to this guy one time, and I said, this is a rough old station here. And he said, yeah, it tends to be rough. He said, I said, you get people with guns? Oh, yeah. I said, you need to be very careful. You have to weigh them up right away. He said, the type of people I'd be afraid of, he said, I'd be if a big guy comes up and he says, I wouldn't be afraid of him because he has no axe to grind. He wouldn't probably hit me. See, I'd be afraid of a guy like you. I said, what do you mean? He said, look at the state here. He said, what weight are you? And I said, like 7.5 stone.
Yeah.
You see, I'd be very careful for a boy like you because I wouldn't turn a word in your mouth. He said, if you turned up here and I looked as if I was going to hit you, right?
Yeah.
You'd probably shoot me because you'd be so terrified.
Yeah.
He said, you would hit me with the first thing I said because you'd know you'd never... If you had a knife, he said you would use it. But if a big guy comes up and I'm cheeky to him, he just laughs because he knows he can take me, right? But if I look as if I'm going to hit you, you would shoot me if you could because you're just terrified.
Self-defense.
I know. He said, you could just do that once and it'd be too late for me. I'm gone. He said, and I said, really? Are you afraid of me? He said, no. He said, I'm afraid of people like you. Geordie Tuft once again rings to boast of the sexual conquest of members of his livestock community. The presenter is by now inured to the mating habits of goats, horses, poultry and assorted vermin. In this field he is ahead of nearly every other Radio Ulster presenter bar Hugo, who has always kept an agricultural ear to the ground.
I had a man left a goat, you called her Vala.
Vala?
Vala.
How do you spell that? Do you know how you spell that?
I do not.
Okay, Vala then.
Vala.
Vala, right?
And the camera was on her and her tail was wagging.
Oh. How's your mother and your father still working?
And Whitey done the job. Whitey my buck goat.
Did he?
Oh,
did it take him long?
not at all, just like a blink of an eye.
Sounds like myself.
And
Go ahead.
he says, and what do you now?
That sounds like me again. This is the story of my life here.
And I says, "Jar £8."
Oh, what's the dear? Dear for me.
Give him a tenner, and with a oh no, he says, keep that. That's all right.
Keep it change.
Doesn't sound like you.
That's not me,
Got a
no.
tenner.
Yeah. Well, that's dear enough, you know. I remember it used to be a $5 a shot. Do you remember?
Balla was due to kid in about April.
How do you know?
Well, they run usually 5 months.
I mean, how do you know? It might have been firing blanks. How do you know?
Oh, Whitey doesn't fire blanks.
So it's due in April.
Oh, I usually throw twins.
When's it due?
In June.
I thought you said April.
Well, April or June.
April or June? Okay. All right then. Well, that's good news.
They run 5 months. So
That's
you
good.
think
But how
that
do they know, Geordie, that it's pregnant?
That's what I'm asking him, and he's beating around the bush here.
How do you know, Geordie?
What?
No, because
How do you know
Whitey
that-
doesn't fire blanks. That's how he knows. You don't know, but you're just assuming.
It could be twins.
They run usually 5 months.
I know, but what Mr. Coyle is asking is, how do you know that the goat is definitely pregnant?
Has she been examined?
Oh, she'll be pregnant. Not a doubt.
The triumph of hope over experience.
I wish I sure was going to happen.
So Whitey never fails.
No, Whitey never fails.
See, why do I doubt this? But there may be some kind of shortfall in the female goats.
He's not firing blanks, I can tell you.
Anyway, this is great. Thank you for listening. Back tomorrow. Bye-bye, Sooty. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Sooty. Bye-bye.